welcome to Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts. That's namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Rory, how are you?
I am not bad, thank you. Spring is here. I know, it's funny. People will be, oh gosh, Rory, can you not just say, I'm great? Well, I suppose it's a Scottish thing. You know, you can say you're fine or not bad or somewhere between okay and horrendous or something. You know, something on the scale. It's okay today. It's okay. And you,
it's
Christina?
Okay. I am fine.
Mm-hmm. Hooray. There we go.
And, you know, in the lexicon of the rooms, if anyone in our listener group has been in any of the 12-step programs, FINE is an acronym. Do you know what it's for?
No.
Well, we won't say the word. We'll be proper, but F, up. Yeah, so insecure, neurotic, and emotional. So I am fine. We'll just leave it at that.
That's the tagline for this podcast, though, isn't it? I thought. Did I not put that on Podbean? I can't remember.
Oh dear.
Fine.
Oh, we're off to a running start, aren't we now?
Hooray. Well, before it descends further, let's talk about the newsletter. So shout out again to our newsletter, which you can subscribe to via richmondsadvisorgroup.com. Shout out to new subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter yet, you can do so. We'd be very pleased if you did. Christina, what kind of thing can people expect in the newsletter?
You know, it would be funny if we said, no, don't bother. No, we would not be excited if you subscribe. I'm so glad you said we are excited because we are.
Yeah.
Yes. So the latest issue talks about our episode on the future of MDR, and it looks at the next wave of MDR and XDR services. It links to last week's podcast episode where our friend and guest Ross Young, who is a former CIA officer and he is the CISO Tradecraft podcast co-host, he talks about something that most cyber pros really don't want to talk about, and that's money and budget. But he has a really good way of framing things and some very tactical, very tangible, useful advice. So anyway, folks, please check out the newsletter. Subscribe. You'll get links to all kinds of things, including the podcast that I mentioned from last week, and also some of our blogs.
Great, thank you. So let's talk about what's happening this week. And Christina, we've not really covered news stories for a little while, have we? We've been busy doing lots of other things. So my question is, has anything happened? I don't know. Maybe?
No, nothing. The world stopped while we were in our own bubble. No, of course something's happened, Rory. You know, you have discovered a cautionary tale about the use of AI agents, and we keep finding these in little dribs and drabs, and they're shocking when we do find them. So this one is a Claude-powered AI coding agent that deleted the entire company database in 9 seconds. Backups zapped after the cursor tool powered by Claude went rogue.
Yeah,
Yikes.
Indeed. And I've already got an update on that, which just literally came across the desk, so we'll talk about that. Okay. M&A is a topic we often talk about. It's one of the more interesting things that we cover, and certainly people like to hear about it. And we've kind of had a lull again in the coverage of that, but it was an interesting one. It's a small acquisition, but Airbus, which is the France-based European airline manufacturer, the rival to Boeing in the US, announced that it was buying a small cybersecurity company called Quarks Lab. And this is very much a sovereign cyber play in the same way that many other European firms, as well as the EU themselves, are looking to, I guess, reduce their dependency on US-based technology firms.
Sure, that makes sense to me, given the state of the world. And good for them. I'll be really interested to hear more about that, Rory. to be honest, I scanned the notes on that. I was more intrigued by the first bit of news.
Yes.
I'm intrigued by the Quarks Lab acquisition, though, because it does signal geopolitical tectonic shifts, and there are a lot of those occurring right now. And, we had your monarch here in the U.S. He may even still be here with the Queen. And they had a lovely day in New York City, apparently, yesterday.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I saw some great
some pictures.
Coverage of them. The King was in Harlem at a kind of a greening the city project.
Yeah,
so they had
a little garden area.
Yeah, garden area with school kids, and one of them was saying, "You're a nice man, Mr. Charles," which I thought was great, very cute.
You have nice hair. Yeah, one of them said
that's
to the
great.
King.
I know,
and he said, "I do." Oh, good.
I know. I'm sure.
And the Queen went to visit Winnie the Pooh. One of my favorite characters.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The original Winnie the Pooh bear, bought at Harrods in 1920 by A.A. Milne and given to his son, Christopher Robin.
Really?
Is at the New York City Public Library.
I didn't know that.
So she went and visited good old Winnie L'Ourson, as the French like to say, and read some Winnie the Pooh stories to children. Isn't that lovely?
That is nice, yeah. Much nice.
Yeah.
And then this week, who do we have on this week as a guest?
Yeah, I'm excited to have Corey Daniels, Chief Security and Trust Officer at LevelBlue, join us. He's got quite the background and came out of IBM, then TrustWave, and then came over with the acquisition to LevelBlue. And he isn't just a CISO, he's also the trust officer. So we have a lot in store for us with that chat.
Nice. Right, let's talk about this week's news, Christina. And the first story is, we mentioned at the beginning that a Claude-powered AI coding agent has deleted the entire company database of this company called Pocket OS. And it deleted it in 9 seconds. Backup zapped after Cursor, the tool powered by Anthropic's Claude, goes rogue. So the founder of Pocket OS penned a social media post, this is from Tom's Hardware, basically to warn others about the systemic failures of, or potential systemic failures of, flagship AI and digital services providers. And basically what happened was a coding agent deleted the production database, and then the cloud infrastructure provider's API, wiping all the backups after the main database was zapped. In other words, it saw, that's been deleted, let's update the backup. That's been deleted, so we shall delete it here, and so on and so forth, it was scary. There was a couple of things about this that I thought was interesting. One was, when queried afterwards...
I loved this. I loved this in your notes. Yeah. It kind of goes back to FINE.
Exactly.
The acronym.
So the founder, Jar Crane, he decided to ask the agent why it went through with, as it's called, this dastardly database deletion deed. All the alliteration. The answer was illuminating, but pretty unhinged. I would agree on that. And is quoted verbatim in this article. It began as follows, quote, in caps, "Never effing guess." And that's exactly what I did.
And this is the agent?
Yeah.
Wait, this is the agent saying that?
Yeah. Never guess.
Never effing guess.
Never
oh my
guess.
Gosh.
Wow. He continued, this is the agent, "I guess that deleting a staging volume via the API would be scoped to staging only. I didn't verify. I didn't check if the volume ID was shared across environments. I didn't read Railway's documentation on how volumes work across environments before running a destructive command." So basically, the agent knew it was in the wrong. And it was coming up with a kind of a forced confession.
But it didn't know it until it was confessed. I mean, it knew it just after, but it didn't know ahead of time that what it was about to do was going to be wrong, correct?
Exactly.
Oh, so that just put like shudders through my whole body.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it caused quite a storm on the internet with lots
kind of an S storm.
Yeah, an S
keep
storm.
with our expletives that we've been using on this episode.
So, and various criticisms on both sides, and well, perhaps it was their own fault or not, or it was the cloud provider's fault. No, it wasn't. It wasn't the agent's fault. Anyway, I literally just got, it was about 2 hours ago, there was an update on Tom's hardware, basically saying that the cloud provider has recovered all the critical files and it has since broadened its 48-hour delayed delete policy.
Wow.
So yeah, it seems as if that has resulted in a policy change, and Railway penned a blog stating this should never happen again thanks to revamped policies and new guardrails. So there we go.
Does it say who the cloud provider, which cloud provider it is?
Yeah, so it's Railway. So
Railway is I was wondering who Railway was.
Oh, sorry, I should have said. So back in. So Pocket OS is a SaaS platform. The Railway was the cloud infrastructure, or is the cloud infrastructure provider.
Okay.
And as the folk at Pocket OS said, they would consider that Railway is a cloud infrastructure provider, lesser known perhaps, but is generally considered to be friendlier than the likes of AWS, perhaps a bit more one-to-one, smaller, maybe more personable service. I don't know.
And they were certainly more nimble in the sense that they fixed an issue that wasn't their issue, but they made their system more flexible in light of what happened with this AI agent.
Yeah,
and for a little company like Pocket OS to get the attention of a cloud provider to get that to change, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
so
that's pretty
good on them.
And I'm glad that update was there because it was on my mind. I thought this is a good example. We've mentioned this kind of thing before and they talk about this in the aviation industry, where you have these kind of the Swiss cheese model, or this cascading series of events that leads to disaster, where all the different holes in each of the backups or the strategy or the fail-safe all happen to kind of line up at the same time, and it goes from one thing to the next to the next. In this case, an agent does something bad, it deletes something. The cloud provider sees that as a valid backup. In other words, it's been deleted, it deletes that, and it goes on and on and on like that. So, and a good example, we've talked about this again before. We've mentioned this idea of a governor, a governing agent to keep the other agents in line, or a suite of master agents. But I think the learning from this is that was potentially a catastrophic business-ending event for Pocket OS.
It was catastrophic until Railway helped out by retrieving everything from its backups. But I'm going to just walk with the title, Never Effing Guess. That's just what I'm going to be thinking about. And I think it should be the title of the episode because that is really shocking. It doesn't surprise me, but it is still very shocking. And what's most shocking is that the agent then very honestly and transparently said, I messed up, I didn't check, and it knew it was wrong in hindsight.
So, cautionary tale indeed. Yeah. So the second news story of the day, just a short one, and it's not earth-shattering in terms of the size of the deal, but so Airbus has, as it says, strengthened its sovereign cybersecurity capabilities with the acquisition of Quarks Lab in France. So for those of you who don't know Airbus, think Boeing, but it's the Boeing of Europe. Basically, it's based in France, in Toulouse, actually, not far from where I used to live. And
nice.
I remember seeing the trials of the Airbus A380, the huge plane that can, it's kind of like double-decker, almost like a kind of a Boeing 747 on steroids. Anyway, so they bought this little company. And the idea behind this is that by buying a French company, or at least a cybersecurity company based in Europe, it strengthens its position as a trusted sovereign partner for French authorities, and while strengthening its presence in the European cybersecurity landscape. Now, France has a history of doing this, to have, state-sponsored or at least acquired companies. They did it for cloud. I'm sure they're wanting to do it for quantum and so on. But Quarks Lab is a small company. It's privately owned. They were founded in 2011. They've owned about 100 employees. I think the founder originally worked at Airbus, so obviously there was a connection there. But if you look just slightly further afield, it's not the first time Airbus has done this. They bought a company called Infodas in Germany in 2024. And then they've announced the planned acquisition of Ultra Cyber Limited in the UK this year. So each of these bits, it's kind of piecemeal, but they believe it's strengthening their sovereign capabilities of its cybersecurity business.
Yeah, it makes good sense to me. And, we pendulum swing from globalization to nationalism, back to globalism. It's just been something we've been swinging back and forth. And I think right now we're seeing very much a retreat to being more sovereign-based with technology, with critical infrastructure. Makes good sense, and I say bully for them. I don't think that the U.S. should have a monopoly on all things aircraft or cyber or the combination.
Yeah, well, and I think there's a culpability here with Europeans as well, and it kind of extends more broadly the fact that the Europeans have been very reliant and haven't really invested in the same way that the US has done in its homegrown talent. That's why many of the best and brightest of these companies that are developed in Europe then become snapped up by US firms. I think also something like Israel, it's very much a conduit to next stage investment through the US. It's not through the wider Europe in general. So there is we need to do something better because the US technology is so great if you think about the investments that are being made. So this week's special guest is Corey Daniels, Chief Security and Trust Officer at LevelBlue. Hey, Corey, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Rory, thank you so much. And hello to all the listeners out there. I love your show.
Great.
You're so sweet. Lovely to have you on, Corey. Corey and I met at RSA and had a lovely chat. And I'm just so grateful that you could come on and talk about anything that we decide to chat about. So the softball question that we usually start with, which I warned you about, is what keeps you up at night, Corey?
Oh, Christina, this is one that is particularly topical, and hopefully we haven't exhausted on. But the illuminating advances in AI and flavor, of the week and Mythos and all the talk recently about Mythos. But what's keeping me up at night right now is just the rapid technological advancement we're seeing, and that competition breeds organically, and the security versus threat actor delta and gap widening between how does security programs continue to stay tip of the spear, but recognizing that our policies for vulnerability identification remediation even relevant anymore. I mean, we look at some of the traditional language of handling your criticals, handling your highs, handling your mediums, your low. And the performance that we're seeing, never mind of Mythos, but coming from like Anthropic's Opus or other AI agentic-like capabilities, is just signaling that the way we handle traditional hygiene must be handled in a way in terms of speed, in terms of top-down support, in a way that we've just never really comprehended. Like we talk about it, but the concern of time to exploit versus the readiness of many security organizations' ability to handle ungoverned threat actor use of models like similar or like Mythos is very concerning.
Oh boy, you have just opened Pandora's box, and I love it. I really do love it because I have been really reading and thinking and chatting about Mythos recently, and I'm actually writing a blog on it, and I was interviewed by NPR a few days ago. I don't know if they'll use anything I said. It probably wasn't that illuminating. I want to go back a little bit to how you started about Mythos. This ability to respond, this ability to look at vulnerability from exploit to remediation has now accelerated, number one. But number two, you mentioned the attacker's use of a model like Mythos. So say more about which ones specifically are you most worried about? Attackers getting their hands on something like Mythos or Opus 4.6 and using it for ill gain, or our ability to respond?
Can I say all the above? I believe strongly in control what you can control. And threat actors will have access to this. It's not a debate of whether they will or not. They will. So,
they will.
My concern is keeping that up at night is that that's not even keeping me up at night as much as how much does any security leader or any business need to assess their cyber defensive operating model, people, process, technology, and start asking, do we have the right skills right now to start looking at the idea and the concept of combating AI versus AI, but the illuminating data and conversation using Mythos as the example, right? Because I think that is important, that it won't be just Anthropic and Mythos. Like that is just the latest. And every vendor out there or organization that's in this game will have capabilities catching up within the year to what Anthropic has articulated in its concern. So that skills of, well, how do we look at combating AI, and how much do we need to look internally and assess the skills of the team that we have, assess my own skills as an individual and as a leader? How do I articulate these risks about the importance of, we're at a stage that was conceptual of this AI versus AI, but it really feels like we're there. Like it's not this thing that's in the future. This is something that if you're a leader not looking at how to apply AI into your defensive model and AI into your program, then you're really going to be putting your team and your business at risk at the ability to handle the speed and the veracity that we'll see threat actors be able to execute, because we see two major things. One is the concern of turning a mild to low skilled hacker into a more sophisticated skilled hacker, and turning a more highly sophisticated skilled actor like a nation state, and just the ability to execute at increased speed and with increased volume. That's the terrifying thing.
Yeah, it keeps me up at night, Corey. To be honest, you said a mouthful, right? You said things like, okay, increase speed. We need to increase our speed by using AI. And I would say to you, if a leader hasn't started building AI and agentic AI capabilities into their security program, they're going to be run over really fast. I mean, you were saying it a little bit more gently, but I would say, folks, you've got to get on the bandwagon. I was talking with a CISO friend of mine a week and a half ago, and he said, yeah, I've just been made the AI guy. I'm a CISO for this large company, and now I'm the AI guy, how to build it properly in the company. And I won't name the company, but huge data center company. And he's like, I don't know what I'm doing. So he spent the weekend doing a deep dive, learning everything he could learn, and then calling everybody he knew to learn what he could. And this is the state that we're in, right, Corey? This friend recognizes that there isn't enough training material, that we are in the fastest paced onboarding of technology ever in the history of IT, that he has to skill up and be the leader in something he doesn't quite understand. And he's an OG, he's a graybeard, like the three of us on this, podcast. He's got to skill up faster than he ever has before. So it's definitely keeping my friends up. It's definitely keeping me up, because not only is the threat increasing in speed and complication, but it's also the response. No, but I want to go back, Corey, to the hygiene and the program elements that you mentioned. Let's talk about the real stuff in our program. What needs to change? Risk management, ? How we work with our controls, ? What do you think needs to change as we go forward?
I think the biggest priority, which is also one of the hardest, is culture and how to look at elevating fluency at a way to elevate the floor of the entire organization in being mindful and situationally aware of what these threats mean and what they mean to the business. And I'll give an example of, you see some organizations going like, you know what, as part of the KPI of someone's performance review, every member of this business is going to be able to demonstrate how they vibe code and how they're applying AI into finance, account payable, HR, legal, go down the list of key business functions. But then thinking about, well, how are they going to do that? And that's just controlling and the concern of your own attack surface from a I'll call it from the security leader angle and risk management leader angle. Never mind what threat actors are doing, but we have this impetus to roll out AI and deploy AI and embrace these advanced models into the hands of individuals that may or may not be skilled to understand what the data implications are, whether, never mind the regulatory concerns, and adopting some of these advanced capabilities. And that's purely from just managing even the own walls and defensive attack surface of the ecosystem of an enterprise. The piece that I look at in how KPIs start to look at how many people will get hired into DevOps, but are measured on how many misconfigurations or remediations or vulnerabilities are they closing. There's all this piece of organizational debt and culture debt around roles and responsibilities of who should be and who's tasked with fixing all these misconfigurations in the company versus just being a security and risk problem, is one that I still don't think we've solved as an industry. And now we have these advanced models that, unless organizations are able to sort this out and either apply AI to help with misconfiguration and vulnerability remediation to lighten the load of humans to be involved to do that, are just going to be caught at extreme exposure, especially over the next 2 years. While I think you framed it well. Like we're all on the tip of the spear here, but it's clear that the next 2 years look like they're going to be rough and look like there will be a gap between those who've really leaned into defending, not just from a security team, but organizational. And that, I think that as I come back to it, that's why I say culture. And I say culture from the top down is so critically important, because otherwise there's a headwind for any security leader to help try to defend and tackle this without that support and without that emphasis.
In many ways, I still have a relatively fresh eye when it comes to cybersecurity, although I have kind of earned my grey beardness in other parts of the tech industry. But if we're in this kind of existential fight between attackers and defenders, both sides of whom are using the same tools, both sides of whom are ramping up defensively, ramping up offensively, is it time for a new way to assess our effectiveness as cyber defenders? To your point, if you think about the attackers, they're looking at cyber criminality. They're looking to extort money. Their KPIs are different from the defenders, right? Is it time to look at a new way of measuring effectiveness when it comes to defense, and not in, let's say, the human way that we've done before? And that might seem a little bit abstract, but it would seem to be that if we match the approach that the attackers are taking, but with a, let's say, doing good hat on as opposed to a doing bad hat on, that might be a way to try and bridge the divide between the two. I don't know.
Absolutely, Rory. And I love what you phrased there. We do see some analysts communicating the need for the industry as well to, how do you shift from volumetric, traditional activity-like based metrics into more outcome-based metrics. And when I say metrics, like outcome-based positioning is really, when I hear you emphasize, the need for change, a big part of another element of what concerns me at night in the industry is that you can have someone do all the right things in security, but unless they've been able to link the value of the cyber defensive people, process, technology, performance, and capability back to business resilience and business process resilience, it really falls to that paper tiger category of, you have this ultra mature, super sophisticated, highly invested, let's say fully autonomous SOC of the future. But if it's not able to articulate the confidence to the business, and this is where I put that emphasis on trust, if it's not able to have an explainability and defensive readiness to the threat actors, either nefarious or intentional or unintentional in nature, to key business systems that are required, as part of for that function to run. And then as you look at that key business's role in someone else's supply chain, that supply chain is able to keep up and running. This explainable positioning is really what I encourage for security leaders to start thinking about, and look at your policies and look at your metrics that you have today, and start to think about, what is the so what of this data, and is the so what of this data still relevant for this new attack surface that we're seeing acted upon between our own organizational adoption of AI, which is a different problem set, but some familiar stories of when everyone leaped into cloud on their digital transformation journey. This AI transformation journey is going to challenge us in a way that cloud did not, and in terms of both financial predictability and defensive and regulatory concerns and risk. So that's, I emphasize that in particular of, I don't have all the answers, but assessing how we become more intentional in our policies, more intentional in our metrics that we communicate, to communicate explainability and confidence in the predictability of our resilience against these threats and to our own business.
I love it. The outcome-based versus the metric-based. And it's very much related to the conversation that Rory and I have been having quite a bit lately about deterministic security versus probabilistic security. And so I don't think we'll be 100% probabilistic, where we're accepting a certain amount of risk based on desiring that outcome that you're stating, Corey, whatever that outcome is that you desire. Likewise, I don't think we'll be as deterministic as we used to be. So we'll be gradually, I think, moving more towards accepting a certain amount of risk in favor of gaining the outcome that you desire as a business, but having the knowledge and insight of what those risks are that you're willing to accept in a way we haven't done exceedingly well at doing in the past. Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. And I would frame it of how the role is evolving, and certainly how it's evolved for me in particular, as I've seen this over the last 5 years, even in just owning the security leader hat as opposed to advising other security leaders on it, is really the difference of how important it is to provide an informed risk decision as opposed to the business making uninformed risk decisions. And that for me has become a critical mark, and it takes a village, because whether a security leader is able to do that with a tailwind, with the support of the company inviting that security leader to the table with that perspective, or it's a headwind in whether someone wants to hear it or not, illuminating those deficiencies or the gaps or concerns or perceived gaps and concerns is really going to be important now more so than ever.
Yeah, indeed. And our conversation has become kind of almost philosophical towards the end. But Christina, it tends to do that, doesn't it?
It does tend to do that. And, Rory, I don't know. I feel like we're just getting started with Corey.
I know.
And here we are at the end of our time. And so what I'd like to ask, Corey, is that we can invite you back again to talk not just about this, because I think this is fascinating, and I want to drill down a little bit more into this philosophical area, but also we were going to chat about how we reskill our leaders, how we help the next gen folks come up the ranks. And so we'd love to have you back on if you're willing.
Oh, absolutely. It is my absolute pleasure to join this group. It's phenomenal topics. I thank you so much for the what you tackle every day and every week and help elevate with our community. I'm happy to be part of that.
Oh, bless you. Well, thank you so much. And we're going to say bye-bye here, but we'd love it if you'd stay on just for just a minute after the recording ends. So, Corey, thank you so much again. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll talk soon.
Christina, Rory, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Corey. Bye-bye. So another great discussion this week. Corey was a really good guest. What a fantastic discussion we had.
He's so articulate and knowledgeable. And, I really did want to talk to him also about how he helps his teams But hey, Mythos is really top of mind. I'm certainly thinking about it. I'm so glad he brought it up.
Well, it's the topic that's not going to go away anytime soon. Whether you believe it fully or you think that some of it might be hyperbole or not, even if a little bit of it is true, it's something that should keep all of us up at night and will be something we'll keep talking about, I'm sure, until the next model comes along. And then, we'll have to talk about that, of course. It's the way it goes in the crazy world of AI.
Absolutely. So listen, we should probably wrap. And on that note, we would love to hear from you, our listeners. What would you like us to talk about? Mythos all day long? Or should we go back to GRC, our topic from last week? No, let us know what you'd like to hear about. Send us an email. You can reach me at Christina@RichmondAdvisoryGroup.com and Rory
at Rory@RichmondAdvisoryGroup.com. So with that, folks, thanks for joining us. Great to always get your feedback. Appreciate you sending that to us. And hopefully you can join us again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.